and welcome to Filmi Ladies. We are Pitu and Beth. And just 2 days ago in America, we celebrated Father's Day, or as I like to call it, Pitashri Mahotsav. And in Filmi Lady tradition, I mean, it's just a tradition from this year, but whatever. We did a Mataji episode, and so we're going to do a Pitaji episode as well. Beth is going to time travel for this episode because she is going and she's going to talk about a 1959 movie, which is Apur Sansar, part of the Apur trilogy by the great and esteemed Pitashri himself, Satyajit Ray. And my movie is very much of this timeline. I picked the 2025 movie that is streaming on Amazon. It is the first, it is the directorial and writing debut of Boman Irani. And the movie is called Mehta and the Mehta Boys. And so Boman Irani plays the Mehta Pitashri, and Avinash Tiwari, who is an actor I absolutely adore and cannot stop talking about, plays his son. And so, yeah, this is the Father's Day episode. And then at the end of the episode, I'm very excited to administer yet another rhyming quiz. Yay! So, Beth, I have two questions for you. Number one, will you please tell our viewers slash listeners like a little synopsis of Apur Sansar and why specifically you chose it for this episode? And then I also wanted to ask you if you found it difficult, like I did, to come up with a movie option for the Father's Day episode, because I personally found this episode harder to think of than the Mother's Day episode. So, two questions.
Second question first.
Okay.
This movie came to mind almost immediately for me because of the iconic image of Apu with his little son on his shoulders at the end of the film as life triumphs.
Yeah.
And so I decided I wanted to rewatch this film and talk about it.
Okay.
And I kind of thought, oh, maybe something else will come to mind, but if it doesn't, I'll definitely be happy.
Yeah.
But nothing else did really come to mind. And I think you're right. I think this is harder somehow, especially if we want to choose, assuming we want to choose not standard patriarch and or sort of benignly non-involved dad. I feel like there are a lot of those, especially in Hindi mainstream, which is most often what we talk about, although not only. So, and I know they're out there, right? But like we've talked about the namesake, we've talked about Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, we've talked about Duar, the dad who flakes off and,
Yes. We've talked about Mohabbatein, our favorite.
We've talked about Mohammedan. We've talked about Suhag with the dad who has a wife type figure who is insanely devoted to him for no reason. Like, so we've done some of the more unusual dads already. But we all know I have a non-secret mission to add more Bengali films to this podcast. So when I just, and watching it through the lens of thinking about fatherhood, I was like, this is not the richest text I could have chosen, but it's fine.
Yeah. Also, it's Satyajit Ray. I don't think anyone is going to have any complaints. It's fine.
No, and I feel like when the couple times we've talked about his films before, people have been positive. So,
yes.
I'm assuming there might be some listeners who, like me, came to this kind of late in their Indian film viewing experience. I never saw this in college. I went to art films all the time growing up and in college, but I never saw this one. So I came to this in my 40s. I guess, or approximately 40. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's a classic for a reason. I have seen this one more than I've seen the other two in the trilogies. For those who don't know, this is the last of 3 films based on novels about a young boy, then man, named Apu, who has a variety of very sad things happen to him, but refuses to be defeated by sort of the tragedies in life. I feel like one of the phrases you hear about this series all the time is like the affirmation of life, and we will go on and we will find things to be joyful about, or
like quietly triumphant.
Yeah. And of course, Ray is very famous for his humanity, and I feel that is on display here. It is the debut film of both Sumitra Chatterjee and Sharmila Tagore. They are both amazing in this film. Like, they're so good. And maybe even her more than him, because she has so much less to say. Her character is very quiet a lot. Anyway, so our protagonist, Apu, is in Calcutta. He is leaving school because he cannot afford to stay, but he's a very bright student. He wants to write. He comes with a letter of recommendation from one of his teachers saying, like, please, actually, the film opens with this letter of reference saying he deserves your sympathy. He's a very bright, young man. So he's trying to find a job. He does give tuitions. He's living in a very small, dingy, one room flat, next to a rail line. And of course, the train is a thing that is important in these films visually, if nothing else, and probably more than that. And he reconnects with a friend from school named Pulu, who invites him to his ancestral home for his cousin's wedding. They go there. It's out in the country. They're very excited to be like away from the city. Apu is lounging on the grass reading, as this actor will do later in Charulata, which is a film I will talk about somehow in this podcast. um, and the groom's procession goes by, and they pull up to the house, and the groom is declared Pagal, who's
Mm.
not mentally sound to marry. And the girl's mother, so Pulu's aunt, says, "I won't let my daughter marry this, I suspect not very sensitive language, insane person."
Right.
Um, and everyone's worried about the auspicious time for her marriage passing, and maybe she'd never be able to get married again. Apu, who is very anti superstition, and has already said so in the film, is pressured to come be the groom. And he's like, absolutely not, I won't do it. There's this group of men coming towards him, and his back is to a riverbank. And for a minute, you're in a Ray film, but you're still like, oh, what's going to happen here?
Right.
He he a few moments later decides, okay, he will come and marry this girl who's quite young. I think she's supposed to be 15 or something, Sharmila Tagore. Um,
Mhm.
they do marry, and on their wedding night, Apu keeps questioning her about, like, well, what do you actually know about me? And they realize they, have some sympathies. Like, she's literate, which he's very excited by in Bangla.
Mhm.
She knows that he's a writer, and that makes him really happy. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
a man who's glad that he's a writer. Yeah, I've met them.
Mm.
Um, and they end up going back to the city and having a very sweet domestic life.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert, she goes back home to her house to visit with a relative. She is pregnant, she gives birth and dies.
Mm.
And it is horrendously sad. Apu is distraught. He leaves the city. He wanders. He is again found working in a coal mine. I was like, oh, I'd forgotten about that. I was like, oh, hello, Kalapatar. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and Hulu finds him again and says, like, listen, man, like, you've got a son. And Apu says, I
Mhm.
know, I've been sending money. That's all I can do. And Pulu's like, that's not enough. And then Pulu walks off, and then Apu realizes that's not great. He goes to the house, he touches the feet of the grandfather, and says, like, this is all I can do. Please send him to school, but this is all I can do. The little boy Kajal is very badly behaved. He's acting out, I think we would say,
Mm.
today's parlance of child psychology.
He wants attention.
He wants attention. He's not getting it. He knows his mother is dead. He knows his father is in the city, but he's never met him before.
So sad.
It's so sad. And then um they connect. They connect
Mm.
and um Kajal decides he can trust this gentle interloper, and Apu lifts him onto his shoulders, and they
Mm.
walk off down away from the house back to the city.
So sweet.
It's so sweet. It is so triumphant. It is so loving.
Yeah.
It is so, every moment of this film is deeply, deeply relatable, I think,
Yeah.
even though I have not experienced any of these things, but I
Yeah.
felt like it is so beautifully conveyed with not a lot of words either.
Yeah.
I haven't even mentioned in here that Apu's been writing a novel, and then after his wife dies, he throws the novel
Mm.
over a bank, and the pages scatter to the wind. So he's, that's how distraught he is. This is There are so many of Ray's films where I feel like I don't even know what I want to say about them because I love them so
Yeah.
much. I am rendered inarticulate. This one is not of my most favorites, but
Mm.
all of Ray's. I have seen all of Ray's full-length films. They are all amazing. Even the ones that I don't actually, there's one that I'm not that keen on, but this one is definitely up there. And it is just beautiful. It is so deeply felt.
Yeah.
It is so elegantly done. Every single thing in it is gentle yet rich and
Mhm.
so, thoughtfully done. The scene of so back in Tumblr days, you used to see this GIF all the time of Apu on the tram in Calcutta with just kind of
Right.
back. He's been out looking for a job. He hasn't found one, and his hair is kind of ruffling in the wind. And you
Mhm.
see someone who should be beaten down and in other films would be beaten down, but he's taking a moment of some kind of pleasure in the wind blowing through his hair on the,
Mm-hmm.
this is a person who, if you don't know the other parts of the story, both of his parents and his sister have died, and he's
Mm-hmm.
away from his village home, and he's gone through a lot already. But here he
Mm-hmm.
is, like on his own in the Mahanagar,
Yeah.
trying to find a way, and
Mm-hmm.
anyway, he will find a way, and he does. And you do wonder, like, how is he going to raise this little boy? But we already
Yeah.
know from the film that there are a bunch of other people in his apartment complex, and they love him. And like when he
Mm-hmm.
brings a bride home, they all come out and they do the woo thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
everyone's excited. Apu himself has helped care for at least one child in the
Mm-hmm.
building. You see him rescuing a little kid from um, near the train tracks. And of course, the first time you see this, you don't know that he's about to be a dad as well, but you
Yeah.
see him taking these steps towards being able to be responsible for another person, even though I think
Mm-hmm.
it would be very fair for Apu not even to be able to care for himself because he's been through so much.
Yeah.
He's lonely.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm projecting, but I would be lonely if I were Apu. I
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, so watching this with an eye towards what does it say about fatherhood was really interesting. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I meant to do some Googling to see what people have written about this film in terms of, or even this trilogy in terms of being parents, um,
Mm-hmm.
or even being a son. And I just think it's lovely. I think I would find it lovely no matter who was in it, but these two
Mm-hmm.
are so good. I talked
Yeah.
about them as a pair when we discussed Barnali, which is a film I really like
Mm-hmm.
that comes a little bit later that I like to if you watch this and are sad, watch Barnali right after because it's the same two actors very close in time and you're like, "Oh, we can imagine this is the ending that Apu um and
Yeah.
I never had." Um
This
yeah.
is why I don't rewatch this movie because it makes me sad and now I'm crying. Thanks, Beth.
Oh, yeah. It's just
Yeah,
it's just a beautiful film and
it's so beautiful.
you can understand why I think everybody one upon watching it one can understand why it is received so well. Wikipedia says that this was not particularly well received in India at its release and not as well as the first as Patar Panchali was.
Hmm.
Abroad it was very well received, which is interesting, but it is yeah, I mean I did not watch the Criterion print, but you can get the Criterion.
Hmm.
I think I have seen it on the big screen, actually. You should watch the Criterion if you can get your hands on it. It's
Hmm.
gorgeous. Yeah, everything about this film is just beautiful to me, I think. And as someone, maybe we should talk about this a little bit too. You and I, as only children with fathers
Hmm.
who have passed away, like thinking about someone learning to be a father when theirs is not around anymore is
Yeah.
moving, I find, even just sort of in this
Hmm.
abstract way. But yeah, this film is iconic in terms of that, that image. Sometimes it's on the poster, I
It's
think.
beautiful.
You
Yeah.
see it on, oh, we're doing a Ray retrospective. You might well see that image. The little boy is such a good actor, and I think he never did another film again. And he's like 6
Okay.
in this movie. He's so cute in his little like sweater vest and his mask. And um, I don't know, everyone in this is great. Most of the people in this only have a few sentences here and there,
Right.
it's Apu and then a bunch of side characters and Aparna, um, but I mean, everything is deployed just like wouldn't
Yeah.
change a thing, not a thing.
It's so like spare and beautiful. And what I love is like it's so heartfelt and emotional, but it's not like sentimental. It's just beautiful. This movie is so good. And this is why I
Even
will not rewatch it, Beth.
even while your tears are being jerked like they are right now for you, like you can think about like remember the moment when this is before he's gone off to the wedding. Apu is on his balcony and it starts to rain while he's washing his
Hmm.
shirt out. And again, he just kind of takes this moment and leans against the balcony and enjoys the rain
Yeah.
falling on him. Even though you can kind of imagine the roof over his little room may not do that good of a job. Actually, I don't think
Yeah.
it's a roof leak, but you can imagine. And here he
Yeah.
is just like delighting in this thing of nature, which I suppose ties back to his, upbringing in the village a little bit that he was
Hmm.
always enchanted by nature in certain ways, but he has a life of the imagination that really
Hmm.
buoys him. And I suspect that comes into play at the end too, where he can imagine what it's like to be a father or to connect with a
Hmm.
child, even sort of more abstractly, and he's going to do it.
Yeah. He's going to be learning and growing, as we
He
like
is
to say.
definitely going to be
Yeah.
learning and growing. I mean, poor Apu learns and grows like the whole, yeah, that's his whole story. Maybe that's why I hadn't thought about
He has had several master classes in learning and growing throughout this trilogy.
it.
But I think that's also what I think that's the greatness of this series, but it's also what makes it so hard for me to watch because his character, I worry for him so
Oh
much.
yeah. Yeah.
Because there's the things that happen to him could easily break someone, and I'm always worried that he's reached his breaking point. Like, how do
Mhm.
I know he hasn't reached his breaking point like 5 minutes after this movie ended, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
No,
mean?
you
And so
don't.
that fear
Mm,
like gnaws at you because this is a person that you're rooting for, but you're also scared for them,
yeah.
and they've already had a hard life and you don't know how much more they can take coming their way. And I think
Yeah.
they're kind of like wondrous nature, I think, is what makes Apu's character so phenomenal, but it's
Mhm.
also what makes it worrisome for me. Like, I want to take care of Apu,
Yeah.
and I want it, and that is, it's both beautiful and enchanting for a viewer to feel that strongly about a character, but it's also like scary and worrisome. And I think that's also Ray's greatness, right? Like, he
Yeah.
creates these characters that you worry about and you care
Mhm.
about them like they are people that you know,
Mhm.
as opposed to just these imaginary fictional people. And also, of course, the acting in this movie as well is so amazing. In some ways, this movie, like Apur Sansar, just the concept, and also there's shades of The Householder
Yeah.
that I love so much.
Yeah.
Like that same like naivete and innocence of like Shashi Kapoor and Leela Naidu, and like the cuteness and the
Yeah.
innocence, and like,
Yeah.
when they sit in the bus because they're going to that wedding, and
Yeah.
she's sitting at the window seat and she has her like sari over her hair. It's so cute
It
and
is.
it's so darling. I think that's the word I would use. It's darling
Mhm.
without being twee.
Oh,
um
not a tweet.
yeah, it's
I
not Wes
know.
Anderson, it's Satyajit
No.
Ray. It's not quirky, it's real.
How do you, so I'm gathering you haven't rewatched this in a while because it's
No,
too hard, but do you have thoughts on what you remember about how Sumitra Chatterjee plays Apu and
I don't, the way I remember, because I actually saw the Criterion Collection. So I had seen Pathir Panchali, because in the, like, remember I said when I was in India in the afternoon, NFDC would show
yeah,
those movies. That's how I saw it. But I missed the other two movies. So I only saw Pathir Panchali. And then maybe because of college or whatever, I didn't see the other two. And then when I moved to Chicago, my library had like a really amazing Criterion Collection of like many, many, many movies. And I actually had a functioning DVD player at that time. I don't anymore. And so I remember going through so many like older movies, like Indian as well as like Hollywood films as well. Like I saw Citizen Kane, which I did not
mhm,
enjoy actually. I saw a lot of films at that time. So I actually did see like Criterion Collection stuff. For me, it didn't even feel like Soumitra Chatterjee was an actor who was playing Apu.
I
It felt like
know,
he was Apu,
I know,
which also made it harder because again, you care about that character so much and you worry about him.
yeah,
So I just remember it being so natural and so seamless that I just remember being like worried but also sad. And also Ray is a master, musician,
yeah,
and the music, it just like really gets to you. Like, I know his movies tend not to be too like word heavy, like people are not just like "Wah, wah, wah," all the whole time. It's like he doesn't cast yappers, you
yeah,
know but the music just takes over so much. It's so evocative, it's so soft, and it just carries the moment. And honestly, for me, it's hard to watch his films, not because I don't like them.
yeah.
They're hard because then they linger, and then they take over the day, and then they make me sad, and then I start crying, and it's like I feel like one good watch is enough. I don't need to be rewatching this stuff.
Fair.
But it's beautiful, right? And I feel like everybody needs to watch this trilogy. Everyone needs to watch the Apu trilogy at
Oh
some
yeah.
point. And then based on their moral fortitude or lack thereof, they can decide if they ever want to revisit it. Like Charlotte is much easier to revisit. Like I can watch that movie.
That's
This
the
is
one
harder for me.
that's the one that guts me for whatever reason. But I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah,
so
no,
many
that
of these
one I can
films
take.
do have that. When we've talked about Devi, for example, where it's like
Yes.
at the
Yeah,
end. I
I
want to
know.
correct myself. It's Aparajito, the middle film that was not received well
Mm,
in India. I misspoke. I got my I have all these tabs open and I was thinking about the wrong one. I
yeah.
apologize. This one was well received in India at the time. At the time. I
But
I feel like Sumitra Chatterjee is I adore him. I don't think he's great at absolutely everything, but I do think this sort of like gentle
Yeah.
thoughtfulness, there's nobody who does it like he does.
Yeah.
And depicting thoughtfulness, I suspect, is not the easiest thing to do as an
Right.
actor. Is what are you doing?
Right.
But you just
You're just existing. It's
yeah,
just
the
vibes.
quicksilver face and he uses big reactions very sparingly, but like when he finds
Mm,
out his wife has died, for example, he punches the guy who tells him. Um, it Part of me actually wishes they gave him another take on the punch, but then I thought, well, why would Apu know how to punch somebody anyway? Like this is not
right.
a dishum dishum guy. Of course, it looks weird when he does
It's not a deal. It's not a
it. Yeah,
deal.
it does not come naturally to Apu, but he is so moved and like, again, someone he loves has died. Like this is the fourth
Mm,
time, and he's what, 22 years old, maybe max, I would say,
yeah.
maybe even younger. Yeah, but I just think can absolutely see why Ray picked Sumitra Chatterjee for this. I can see why this, was the beginning of the astounding career that he
Hmm.
has. He does, I would say, very much specialize in roles sort of like this that have, again,
Hmm.
gentle thoughtfulness. You always believe that despite the raggedy clothes he's wearing, that this is a man who is deeply literate and deeply,
Hmm.
is educated as best as he possibly could be, and
Hmm.
it has a life of the mind,
Hmm.
you can
He's a
see.
person you could have a lovely conversation with.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you can absolutely see it.
So the most interesting part, like the fatherhood aspect, I feel
Yeah,
like that's so common in popular culture too, right? And even in normal culture, where it's kind of like men think that, well, I'm paying for the kid, I'm sending money home. What
yeah,
more do
good
you
point.
want?
Right, good point.
What could you possibly expect more from me, right? And it's interesting too, where like obviously that's a terrible thing to do, but even in this movie he's not really vilified for it, but obviously we as the audience are like, bro, come on, you got to do better than this. Like, I know you're sad you lost your wife, I get it, but your child lost his mother too, so maybe put your grief aside and like man up, as we like to say. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like Hindi cinema has like a long history of father characters who exist to basically do nothing. I mean, the whole thing in Trishul, right? Like
Yeah.
Amitabh Bachchan's whole rage in Trishul, which is very justified rage, like his entire anger at Sanjeev Kumar's character. The whole point is about like, you basically just like abandoned my mother, like you had no care, no concern, nothing, and like here I am, and I'm gonna make you basically pay for it, right? So what do you think is so interesting about these characters, where like what's interesting to me is that these men don't actually think they've done anything wrong. Like they feel like,
Yeah.
I'm not actually that bad a father, I don't really know what you expect from me.
In general, so again, thinking about something like Trishul, I think the audience are supposed to think they did something bad, though, at
Mm.
least. In this
Hmm.
film, I don't I don't think we're supposed to be super critical of Apu, um, because he is just he's broken. Life has
Yeah.
broken him, at least temporarily. He gives up the novel. He leaves the city that he's worked so hard to get to. And again, so you will hear us talking about Kalapatar in a few weeks, listeners. But we've recorded that episode already. But he goes down under the ground. And
Hmm.
you don't actually see him in the mine. You see him leaving his shift for the day. And you see him go to a clear stream and try to wipe the
The
coal
grime.
his hands. Yeah. So this is someone who has descended. And it's going to take a bit for him to be able to ascend again. Now, obviously, it's 5 years, I think they actually say in the film, and the little boy is 5. So that's a long time.
Hmm.
But given the resources Apu had to heal himself, I can see why.
Right.
I can see why it took him this long. Now, his friend Pulu, who is really his only connection to this place other than his son, has gone abroad for more education. So Pulu isn't there to
Mm.
try to find him. And it seems like the grandparents also have not done much to try to find him, even though they receive money from him. So
Hmm.
he is in touch at least a little bit. But also I think he doesn't want to be found. So
Right.
it's hard to know. Like the grandparents are mean, how old could they possibly be? Like in when I think about the math on that family, they're probably 50 at the most, but they act much older than that because their
Right.
daughter was very, very young when she got married. But so let's say they're 60. It does seem like they could be doing more, and they have some kind of money because they live in this big house and whatever. So you'd think they could somehow track him down if they wanted to, but I think they don't want to. I assume they too are just too grief-stricken to
Hmm.
act, rationally.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think if Apu had not come around, then we would judge. I think the film would probably want us to judge him because I think now I have not rewatched Devi in a while, but I think that we are to judge that father-in-law,
Yes, for
right?
sure.
He's lost it completely
Yeah.
and he acts badly because of it. But I don't think Apu is in anything like that camp. And if Apu had had access to resources about grief, even if it was just a friend, maybe he
Hmm.
would have behaved very differently, but he's alone. He's so
Yeah.
alone. And like, yes, there are people in his apartment complex who are fond of him, I think, but they don't,
Hmm.
I don't even think we learn any. There's one person whose name we learn because he has the same surname as Apu and their mail gets mixed up sometimes, Mr. Roy. Um, but other than that, like who are these people and how
Right.
long would it take them to notice that he's gone away and hasn't come back anytime? It's been a long time since they saw Apu. Where is he?
Hmm.
So I
It's also, I mean, as the audience, you're also primed to love him and have so much sympathy for him because it's the third of the trilogy. You know Apu at that point.
yeah.
Apu's your friend. And so you are inclined to give him grace and you're inclined to
Yes.
say, he'll come around. I have faith in Apu. If this was a standalone movie, it would perhaps be a slightly different tale where we would be a little quicker to judge, where
I
we'd
was
be like, okay, man, come on.
Yeah, I was trying to think. So I haven't seen the first two. I haven't rewatched them in a while.
Mm,
And this was, I mean, I know, but this almost felt like a standalone film to me on this
mm,
rewatch. And then I thought I should have gone back and at least watched the middle one where we see what happens
mm.
to his father when Apu is like he's a teenager, I guess. Um, I should have rewatched that as a more of a statement on fatherhood too, maybe, or more material about it. But even kind of thinking about this as a standalone, I don't know. You've seen enough of him to know that this is not easy, right? That
Yeah.
he has borne a lot.
Hmm.
It's mentioned in the film, he asks his new wife, like, I have no one. And she says, yeah, I know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I think the film does a huge amount of work in terms of making us sympathetic to
Hmm.
even without knowing the full. Yeah, what I agree with you completely. When you have seen the first two, it's impossible. It's impossible to be upset with this person.
Yeah.
And it's true also that if he were a different person and he's another, let's say 25 by the time the film ends, 25-year-old man who couldn't step up when his wife died in childbirth, and the child is with her parents, and
Hmm.
they have relatively good resources, the kid might be better off, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone's ready to be a parent ever,
Right.
certainly at that age and in those circumstances. Like, this is not what
Hmm.
you signed up for. Um,
Right.
and he literally did step in and try to save her. And maybe that was all the saving power he had in him. And he used it
Right.
on her, and he didn't have any left at that time to help
Right.
himself or the child, right? So
Yeah.
you can, again, if he were a little bit different, you might be like, this is sad, but it's for the best.
Right. That's true. Yeah. I mean,
Especially with the grandmother, because she is demonstrated to be a guardian. She stands up for her daughter. The granddad is a little more like, oh no, the auspicious time is going, oh my daughter. And meanwhile the grandmother is like, you know i
right.
I will kill myself if you make her marry that insane man. I will kill
Right.
myself. So it's like she's clearly not to be messed with, and she does not care about the superstition nearly
Right.
as much and stuff. So, I think I can see how you might think little Kajal is better off
Right. With his grandparents.
with
Yeah.
his grandparents, especially with his grandma.
It's almost like this category would almost be like fathers are humans too.
Yeah, very much.
Like he's a
Which
human being first, he's an individual first, and then when he's ready, he can sort of take on the mantle of fatherhood.
we talked briefly, I think, when we were discussing Agale Lagja with Shashi Kapoor, that
Mm.
single dads in Indian cinema are interesting. So here's another one, right? And I don't think I remembered this one when we were naming that, but of course, for me, Agale Lagja and then Kuch Kuch Hota Hai are the big ones
Right.
about single dads. Although you were saying there's also insane things like Raja Hindustani and things like that, which are different, but like sort of along those
Right.
lines. So it's an interesting type to explore. And of course, we don't get a fourth film to see what Apu is actually like as a father.
Right.
But
Hmm.
the decision, the commitment to fatherhood moment we see in this, which is maybe not something um, in life, it's maybe not quite as clear cut a moment as it is in this,
Right.
but it is.
But we're glad this moment exists.
Yeah, we are. And there's a moment I think you can see. So Apu goes up to the bedroom where the little boy is taking a nap, and it's the room that his wedding night was in. But it's of
Mm.
course no longer decorated with flowers and things like that. So he sets foot in that room, and you can watch him react to like, oh my God, the last time I was here, Aparna was
Hmm.
alive.
Yeah.
We were just about to begin our lives. Um, and the little boy is sleeping, and he reaches out to like touch the little boy, and the little boy looks, wakes up and looks at him with this kind of like slightly fierce for a 5-year-old expression.
Yeah.
He does act out. He doesn't really seem to like or trust anyone. And who knows why exactly. Like we don't
Hmm.
get the sense that anyone's really been cruel to him, but he's clearly an unhappy little kid. And at that point, I think you see Apu is going to step up. And it takes
Hmm.
a few more moments in the film, but there's also then after that, the little boy is thrown a rock towards Apu and the grandfather raises his cane, and Apu says, "No, what are you doing?"
Mm. Right.
And there he is. He's a father now.
Yeah.
And not
That's
that being
so
a father
sweet.
consists only of protecting
Right.
children, but in this film, in this setting, that is a thing that Apu can do. He can raise his hand to stop someone who has raised his hand on the child.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
he can take that simple act, and
Right.
and I think it's significant that you see them walking at the end of the film because you can see like, okay, it's a single step at a time. We're going back to this
Right.
the journey of whatever miles begins with a single step, and
Hmm.
he's doing it.
Hmm. One category that I personally find really enduring actually in Hindi cinema is like, okay, because like if you have the idea of single dads, or let's say you have the concept of a dad who is a father in genetic donation only, but does not care about anything else. There's the uncles in Hindi cinema that step up, right? Like with
Yeah,
like one of my favorite movies is Shami Kapoor's Brahmachari,
right.
right? So he literally runs an orphanage where there's a little sign outside the house that says you can like little cradle and you can drop off like little kids over there, no questions asked. And then he raises this like gaggle for children and a collie, and takes them in a jeep everywhere with balloons singing songs like I want that life for me. I want to be in Shami Kapoor's Jeep on Marine Drive singing songs. I don't know why that has not happened. Um, or there's Mr. India, where it's the same concept, where it's like Anil Kapoor is taking on. So, this idea of for every child that perhaps is unwanted by their father or by their mother or by society in general, because we don't know what their background is or whatever, right? There is a person out there, an uncle, for whom they don't care about any of that. They just care about the fact that you are a lonely, sad, hungry, homeless child, and they're
Yeah.
going to be your fun uncle now. And they're going to take care of you. And that's also a form of fatherhood, which is like very much celebrated in cinema, and I think should be celebrated, right? Where they're like dad, but they're also uncle, but they're essentially the dad in that situation.
Mhm.
Um, the movie I watch is not quite as poignant, but is also very, very interesting. So I love Boman Irani and I love Avinash Tiwari. And when I discovered that Boman Irani wanted to make his like directorial debut and he worked on a script,
Mm.
and then so I've seen some like behind the scenes like interviews and stuff of his, and that he made a movie that is very close to his heart. He said it's been almost 10 years in the making from the time that he got the idea. I immediately knew I wanted to watch the Mehta Boys. So I did not know this until I read an Instagram post by Boman Irani, but he apparently lost his dad when he was only 6 months old. So
Oh,
he never knew his father.
yeah.
Um, but then he definitely felt that void in his life. And then he got married to his wife, Zenobia, and they have two sons. And they also have grandchildren now and everything. And so he wanted to make a film about like a father and a son. And that's how the Mehta Boys happened. And it's such an interesting little movie that takes place essentially over like 48 hours. It's very compact in
Mm,
its scope, and it really doesn't have a lot of characters. It's primarily these two men and like the sister who flits in and out. So the concept is, so it's on Amazon Prime Video. It might be on iTunes, I'm pretty sure.
mm,
So Boman Irani is this older gentleman, like he's in his, I think he's like 79 or something, and his wife has passed away. And so his daughter flies back from the US. So he lives in a small town in Gujarat called Navsari, which a lot of Parsis come from. And although he doesn't play a Parsi in this film,
mm,
and his son, who is played by Minash Tiwari, lives in Mumbai. And so he has to come, home because the mother is dead. And they have this unspoken thing where it's like when the mom dies, the idea is that the father is going to go to the US to live with his daughter
mm.
because she's married, she has children. So he's going to basically move to Tampa, Florida, and he's just going to make a new life over there.
No,
But
don't do it. Don't go to Florida.
I
No.
know. At first, I was like, "Oh God, please, please, no, no Tampa, Florida." But then I was like, "Okay, focus, focus." Um, and then due to like a lost passport and stuff like that, the daughter has to go back to the US because of her children, and
Mm,
he has to board a flight like 48 hours later. So for those 48 hours he has to stay with his son, who is essentially his estranged son, and they really don't get along, they really don't see eye to eye. And he has to stay for 48 hours with his son in his leaking Mumbai flat, which the boy has not taken care of. He's a workaholic, he doesn't care about anything except being an architect. And they're just
ooh, the irony.
constantly,
We love it.
right, and they're constantly like sniping at each other. And Boman Irani is so amazing in this movie because
Oh.
he is every cantankerous Indian uncle you've ever met. I can identify at least 15 Indian uncles when I saw him. It's like it feels so relatable and true to home, like the little comments he makes. And then, man, the ego on these men. Like, like they have to go up the building, they have to walk up the building stairs because the elevator isn't working or the building doesn't have an elevator. They refuse to let anyone hold them by the hand. They refuse to let anyone help, them cross the street.
Mm,
They insist on carrying all their heavy luggage. They won't let you lighten the load. Everything is always met with this like brusqueness and rudeness, where it's kind of like, I can do it. So just this ego of like these old men who are not willing to accept that, frankly, their body is failing them.
yeah.
And perhaps their mind is failing them also. But just this massive inflexibility and rigidity, and a refusal to just soften and let someone else take charge. So there's really interesting moments in this film, like when he's in the car. So he disapproves of everything about his son's life, right? He doesn't like his son's apartment, he doesn't like his son's car, he doesn't like his son's job, he doesn't like the fact that his son does all of his work on a computer. Like, he's like, why do you do your work on the computer? And he's like, because I'm an architect. Like, how else do I do it? I can do it by pen and ink. And he's like, well, but back in the day, architects used to do it by pen and ink. How do you think the Taj Mahal was built? And Avinash Tiwari is like, bruh, what? Like, you want me to like move back in time now and like do stuff the way people did centuries ago? Like, get over it. Um, he, even when he's in the car, he puts his hand on the handbrake because that is the level of, the lack of control. Like, he refuses to relinquish any amount of control. There's scenes in this movie that I was worried for him, like when he's huffing and
Mm,
puffing going up the stairs and refuses to accept any help. I'm like, man, you are one like aneurysm away, you're like one step away from like a heart attack. Like, just chill with the ego and just let your son help you. There's a scene where he has to go to the passport office to apply for like a replacement passport because his was stolen. And the passport office lady says, we have to put an address for this, so what is your son's address? So he says, that's not my address, that's my son's address. My address is my house in Navsari, where I've stayed for 71 years. And she's like, yes, but we're filing for your passport in Mumbai, so we have to have a local address because the police will come to your house for the FIR or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm going to give you my Navsari address.
yeah.
So pig-headed and annoying, but also sweet. Like, he also makes Maggie noodles for his son. And when they're gonna have, because there's like big leak happening, when they're gonna have these like laborers come to like patch it up or whatever, he literally says he's going to make tea and bhajia for the laborers. And Avinash Tiwari is like, you really don't need to do anything. Just let them do their job. And he's like, no, I'll make them. He's like, no, please don't. Just let them do their job. It's fine. And he literally will sit and have tea and bhajia with the laborers. And he's asking him why there's a hole, why there's leakage. Like, again, I know this uncle. I know this person. They are experts in everything, Beth.
Mhm.
They know everything about geopolitics, engineering, medicine, architecture, economy. What?
Snacks, apparently.
Snacks. They are experts on everything. And you, meanwhile, because you're from the younger generation, are stupid and know nothing.
Mm.
So it's just, I think it's a very sweet film. It's not necessarily like earth shattering cinema, but at the same time, I can't remember the last time I saw a movie where the father character was so relatable and someone that we all know, and someone that we are fond of and find endearing, but also find really irritating at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see characters like this because I feel like Hindi cinema either shows us characters that are just almost like caricaturish, and he's not caricaturish. He is literally like that uncle who lives next door. um and so I just thought it was very sweet. I really love the acting. Avinash Tiwari, I think, is very gifted, but this is Boman Irani's film. This is a film to watch if you love Boman Irani. And I love when actors who are really talented and don't get meaty roles in Bollywood, I love when they
Yeah.
take charge and decide to like write and direct a really good role for themselves and make a movie, because it really showcases their talent. So
His career is so interesting.
it's
I
so
feel like we should like
interesting.
do a dive into
Yes.
Irani at some point. So I don't want to go in too far here, but you know, the fact that he's been in the industry 24 years, which is not a short time, but given that he was older when he started,
Hmm.
so like proud of him for making his own film, right?
Yeah,
Good for you,
I
giving him
am.
money. And he is a person who um does not always bring his absolute finest skills to a project.
Yes.
We've all seen him in some really hammed out roles.
Yeah.
Um, Now I can also imagine I could blame those on those directors also because we
Hmm.
know he can really do it. But when he's great, he's so great. So what
Yeah,
a joy to see him in a good role.
it is. Yeah. And I suspect that if he had not written and conceived of this project himself and directed it himself, I don't think a role like this would have come his way. I mean, at some point for some of these older character actors, because that's what he is, he was never a hero, he never will be. He's a supporting
Right.
actor, right? But for him to make a movie where he is the hero of the film, I know the movie is called The Mehta Boys. Really, it's about the dad, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's also about like there's a really good scene where they're in the hospital, and Avinash Tiwari's girlfriend says to him, like, you know, she's very much siding with the father and not understanding the son's frustration, and he kind of loses it with her, and he says, I'm so tired of this, like, you know, everyone says to me like, oh, he's your father, you should listen, you should respect him, blah blah blah. But then when he behaves like a child, they're like, well, you know, he's behaving like a child because, but he's your father, blah blah blah. He's like, he gets to act out in whatever way he wants, and I just have to kind of like take it, and no one ever takes my side. And again, I think this is a very common complaint that Indian kids have, right, where no matter how badly behaved your parent is, you're always supposed to be the better person because after all it's your parent. And I think it's also very interesting to watch because I have, for instance, I have this American friend. She's born and raised in the US. She's white. She's a family therapist. And one time she said to me, like, can I ask you, like, as a person of color, would you ever go to like a white therapist, or do you prefer going to therapists who are people of color? And I said, I've actually had like a white therapist in the past, but also she was Jewish, so it's a little different. But I said I would always prefer going to a person of color. They don't have to be Indian, but at least if they're like Asian, it helps. And she said, that's interesting. Why do you say that? And I say, because for white therapists, it's so easy to say things like, well, if that person is toxic, just go no contact. I'm like, it doesn't work like that in Indian families. If we had to go no contact with every toxic person, we would have no one left, Beth. And some of that is just because it's a culture where people don't talk about their stuff. They don't talk about their junk as much as they should. It's a culture where things are shoved under the carpet, and it's a culture where you're always expected to respect your elders, which is in itself a very problematic statement. But I feel like this movie can be very cathartic to people from our generation who are, who have aging parents
Mm.
and whose parents are cantankerous and difficult, and like you love them, but you're in a position where you're constantly having to be the better person, but you also know that they love you so much, so it's difficult. There's a scene in this film where Bhavna Rani's daughter, who is Avinash Tiwari's sister in the movie, she literally bursts into tears at the airport because she can't take it anymore, and she yells at both of them. And she's like, "I have to go to America to buy actual children, and instead I'm stuck here with the two of you who are basically grown ass adults who are acting like children." And she bursts into tears.
Oh.
And then the brother Avinash Tiwari has to hug her and be like, "I'm sorry, we'll behave." So it's a really good movie, and I think it's a good movie to watch about the father and son relationship. And like I would say that Apur Sansar is about fathers are human beings too, fathers are
Mhm.
individuals too. I think this movie is more like, at some point when you are an elderly person, you need to be willing to relinquish the mantle,
Mm,
and you need to be willing to pass on the torch instead of holding on to it so strongly, and just be willing to like let go a little bit. It's more about the problem that happens when you insist on being the head of the household, when honestly you're no longer the head of the household,
right,
and you need to come to
right.
terms with that. So very interesting look at fatherhood. The movie that actually first came to mind when I thought about this episode was Dangal,
Sure.
because that's an iconic father.
There
And
is.
I thought it would especially be interesting because he's a father of two girl
Daughter.
children,
Yeah, yeah.
and he belongs to a culture where girl children are not valued at all. And I remember there's that scene in Dangal where Sakshi Tanwar has had how many kids at that point? And it's like, ugh, yet another daughter. Like he's such a flawed man and such a flawed father, but and also he's like a dadager, like a dad manager.
Mhm.
It's just such a multi-layered film. I've just been having a rough week, and I wasn't sure I could take a
Mm,
fever pitch drama of that kind, and I needed something that was a little more compact and softer and not quite as
yeah.
overwhelmingly emotional as Dangal is. But I would want to talk about Dangal at some point. Like if we do like a movie on like sports films or something, I would love to talk about Dangal. But for today, I wanted to do a more relatable movie, and
Yeah.
I also wanted to support Bam Nirani and Avinash Tiwari in their latest
Nice.
work. So, oh, also this is so cute. But like at the end of the movie, when they're in the elevator, there's a lady who enters the elevator, and she just stands in front of them facing the camera, and she's wearing a beautiful sari, and she has like a big bindi, and her hair's in a bun, and she's wearing a gajra, and she's just looking at the camera, and then she just smiles. And I was like, where have I seen this woman? Like she's so radiant and beautiful. It's Zenobia Irani, so it's Boman Irani's wife. And
Oh,
I recognized her from his Instagram. She's just there for that 1 second, but like brought a big smile to
nice.
my face. I'm like, hey, I know you from his Instagram. So it's a very cute movie, and I would highly recommend that people watch it.
Nice.
Okay. Are you ready for your quiz?
I am ready for my quiz, I think.
Like last time, I think you're gonna ace it.
I don't know.
I'm going to give you all the ashirvad from the dad from Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, our
Hmm.
great pater familias, Amitabh Bachchan, Amrish Puri, Kulbhushan Kharbanda. All the iconic dads are gonna bless
Okay.
you for this.
Oh boy.
Okay, as always, it is rhyming.
Okay.
Okay, quiz question number one. I am disciplined and an athlete and gruff. My daughters will wrestle, and if they don't like that, duff.
Dongle.
Dangle, yes.
That's a good
Okay.
one.
A good student mustn't laugh or dance and have a single dost. My daughter loved a boy, and guess what? Now she's a ghost.
Mohammedan.
Yes. This one's a little hard. I don't know if you'll get it,
Okay.
but okay. I'm old and fragile and gray, but for my son, I'll fight in every court, no matter what comes my way.
Court as in sports or court as in law?
As in law, as in seeking justice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know. What's that one?
Did the movie Saransh?
Oh, I haven't
So Anupam Kher's, yeah. So Mahesh Bhatt's movie and his Saransh, and he was very young when he did it, but he was amazing. Anupam Kher was amazing in that.
seen
Okay,
Nice.
I have no parents, nor a brother or sister. My urchins call me Bhaiya, and you can call me Mister.
Mr. India.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I know I'm cranky and difficult, and I talk about my bowels, but my daughter puts up with me without throwing in the towel.
Piku.
Yes, I have to say, I was very proud of myself for rhyming bowel with towel.
Very proud.
It's like just call me Gulzar, okay? Like from now
Mm,
on, I'm the resident poet of this
Both ourselves.
podcast. I'm Pitu Saab. Okay, I enjoyed writing this one. I'm a bejeweled emperor, and I'm an overgrown brat. My stupid son and the dancer fell in love, and they'll pay the price for that.
Mubili Azam.
Yes! Not bad. I wrote that quiz question, and I immediately wanted to watch the Pyar Kiya To Dada Kya video because I really enjoy Prithvi Raj being so grumpy and looking like he's gonna have an apoplectic fit. Nobody does a pop apoplectic fits.
Apoplectic.
Apoplectic.
Oh,
I
I
keep
was like,
wanting to say apocalypse.
apocalyptic.
Well, his fits are also apocalyptic, I have to say. But nobody does that as well as Prithviraj Kapoor does. Like, you worry for him. I'm like, somebody call the ambulance because this man going to have a stroke. But yeah, I almost wanted to watch that song again just to see Prithviraj Kapoor just like so severely discombobulated. And then I wanted to rewatch Kal Aaj Aur Kal, which is one of my favorite films.
I had a bet with myself. I'm like, she will not get through this episode without mentioning Kala or Call, and you didn't.
I love that movie so much. And even
Very
in
on
that
point for
movie,
today.
yeah, and he's always upset in that movie, and I don't know what it is. You know how I love a really angsty, sad, tortured Shah Rukh Khan? Like that's my favorite brand of Shah Rukh Khan. My favorite brand of Prithviraj Kapoor is not the fun Sikandar. It's actually the one that looks like you need to call like he needs to be on a stretcher right now because he gonna collapse. So who would you award the Vimal Manikchand Panpasand Filmfare Award for top three greatest
Oh gosh.
fathers in Hindi cinema?
Oh gosh. Um,
You can pick either characters or actors.
okay. Well, the whole paterfamiliasi thing does not speak to me, so I'm not giving it to Bachchan.
Okay.
He wouldn't come to the ceremony anyway, so it's just as well.
He would have
Um,
failed you as it is, so whatever.
I do really love Shashi's character in Agale Lagja. I think the roller skating is it's, it's silly, but I really love it. Like that's a really sweet character. Again, someone who, that's not how he thought his life would go, but he really
Mm.
steps up, skates up.
He's he skates up. He's also a fun dad in Kabhi Kabhi, I have to
I'm
say.
dead. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. So
I mean, his daughter is hella spoiled and annoying, but
yeah. And I haven't seen a ton of Shashi's films where he's, kind of I feel like he's Govinda's dad a few times and things like that. I haven't seen very many of those and I don't
he's
remember.
Govinda's dad.
I think
I
so.
do not see that. I cannot see that father son combination.
Or
I'm
maybe he's
sorry.
just a boss or an uncle or something, but
Okay.
I know they're in a movie together at least. Um,
Wasn't he an interesting dad in Vijayta also?
yes, he sure is. Good point.
Mm.
He surely is. Yeah, so maybe Shashi is a
Yeah, he
good
makes for a good dad, I would
dad.
say.
Um, Gosh. I mean, so this is not a person who these two films are not like I'm a great dad, but he's great at these roles. Raja
Mm.
Kapoor, obviously in Kapoor and Sons, and he's an uncle in Monsoon Wedding. Never mind. He's an
Still counts. That's
there, but
okay.
like those are both really interesting turns. And obviously
Yeah.
he's a bad man in Monsoon Wedding, but he's
Hmm.
good at that. Um Yeah, this is not a category of role I've thought much about, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about uncles, I feel like more of those are springing to mind, like people who are father figures more
Hmm.
than fathers. So like when I watched Sharabi last year for our, I think for our Seven Deadly Sins
Oh yeah,
series or something, um, you know, it's Om Prakash, right, who plays Amitabh's like Munshi,
I think
who's
so.
kind of
I
his
don't
father
remember.
figure, like whoever that was, I think it was Om Prakash, really, really good.
Mm.
Um, AK Hungal has obviously done quite a few of those and is very endearing. We've talked about Anu Kapoor quite a bit in some recent films. Like he's
Yeah,
um
he was an interesting dad, I thought, in Dil Dhadakne though.
yeah, yeah. Pran has been an absolutely insane father in quite a few films, and I at least am here for that at any time. Pran doing something, I'm all for. Ashok Kumar has been an interesting dad or father
Yeah.
figure. Like what as you were talking about the uncles, I kept thinking about how I'm glad to have those roles because it gives all these character actors something to do that and I love all these character actors so good, different
Yeah.
generations of them, but I'm always happy to see them, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm not doing well at coming up with actual
I
father.
like Vinod Khanna as the dad in Kurbani.
Oh yeah, that's
Because
true.
it's Vinod
Another
Khanna.
and another single dad. Yeah, yeah.
And wow, okay, that girl just like manages to get
I
Zinat Aman
mean,
as her new mom. Like, okay.
his choice at the end to throw himself and
Right.
like mm,
Yeah, not a fan of that, but
maybe not the best. And in Dayavan, he tries really hard
mm,
as a dad in certain ways. Again, like you're like, this isn't gonna work, but he is
yeah.
trying. So he's done a couple of those that are good.
A
Um,
dad role that really sticks out for me. I don't think of this actor necessarily as that, but Vijay Raz in Gully Boy. That character just like infuriated me so much. Like, that scene, like, first of all, the fact that he gets remarried, and then I was so upset on Murad's behalf and also on Murad's mom's behalf. And then also that scene where he basically is like squashing his son's dreams. And there's that dialogue that he delivers in a way that really only Vijay Raz can. Like, the man is so talented when he basically says that, it's basically only the rich that have a right to have dreams, and the rest of us just have to survive. And I forced my mom and my aunt to watch Gully Boy. So they were in Mumbai. I live here, and I was like, you have to watch this movie in the theaters. And my mom was like, it's a movie with like rap music and like hip hop music. We're not going to understand it. I'm like, just ignore that part.
you
You'll like the
will.
movie. And my mom could not stop talking
Aw.
about that scene because she was so angry on Murad's behalf. But at the same time, she said, like, I get it. I understand that Vijay Raza is trying to protect his child, and he's trying to like tell him this is the reality of life and this is the reality of society. But at the same time, she was like, I just couldn't see Murad's face so crushed in that movie. And I was like, I know. Why do you think I told you to watch this movie? But yeah, Vijay Raz in that scene was just in that movie was so great, I thought. And then one of my favorite dad movies is Apne, which has the father son teams of Dharam Baji, Sunny Baji, and Bobby. And they just are like boxing in this movie, and it's really great. And there's of course a fair bit of tyag in this film because it's a Deo movie. Of course there's tyag, and it's about like living your living your dreams through your son. So there's a lot of like very unhealthy messaging in this movie, but it also has an extremely sappy, overly sentimental song. I know I'm the same person that a few minutes ago praised Satyajit Ray's movies for being emotional but not sentimental. Apne is all sentiment. Apne is like
We can
every
sing
schmaltz.
multitude. It's fine.
Yes,
We can
there's a
laugh
lot of
and sing.
schmaltz in Apne, and the title song, which says "Apne to apne hote hain." I love that song. It plays throughout the film at many intervals, and when they're not playing it, they're playing it instrumentally also, just to really drill the message home. And every time it plays, I start crying.
Oh.
But yes, I highly recommend Apne if you want to see Dharam Paji as a dad. But like, here's the thing. I know that we're not fans of Nepo babies or whatever, but there is just this massive joy I get whenever I see Dharmendra, Sunny, and Bobby hug each other on screen. And I'm just like smiling the whole time. So I also recommend Dharam Paji as a dad in Apne. So then who are the bad daddies according to you? Obviously all the Amitabh Pater familias,
Yeah,
very
I'm
annoying.
not into that. Um,
K3G Amitabh is very irritating also.
Bad Dad,
Hmm.
and Papatin, obviously.
Hmm.
Um,
You know who's a really irritating and horrible father? Shah Rukh Khan in Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna.
yes,
He's so terrible to his child. I feel very bad for his child.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Um, yeah, I mean that there are a lot of them, right? Uh, the Dewar dad really is up there for me. Like,
Yeah.
I know he's haunted and everything, but like you just noped out on your like, come on, man. Um,
Yeah. I mean, Amitabh also, well, we keep bringing up Amitabh, don't we? Amitabh in Kabhi Kabhi, I don't like that dad either.
yeah.
Like, he's not, he's not nice. I don't like the way he behaves towards Bahida. I don't like the way he behaves towards Neetu Singh. It's just, yeah.
But as you
Amitabh
pointed out,
was,
he's a good dad in Piku.
yeah, he's a very irritating dad in
He
Piku.
is, but like he's not wrong about stuff, right? The way
Right,
he's
yeah.
it.
He's
The,
just very exhausting.
yeah. He's a
I'm Team
character.
Rana in Piku. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, there's not a lot of them that come to mind, honestly. The moms were easier to think about and to find
Hmm.
variety in. Although I'm sure there's plenty of variety about dads, and it's just not coming to mind. Poor dad, so often not the emotional heart of things in Bollywood
Yeah.
anyway. So
Unless it's Amrish Puri and then he's all the emotions all the time at the level of 10, right? Like in DDLJ and films like that.
true. Oh, bad
Yeah.
dad. Bad dad.
No, very bad dad. Yeah.
Although
Okay.
both the dads in that movie are
Who's the other dad in that movie?
Anupam
Anupam
Kher.
Kher? Yeah. I want to flunk my exams and then be gone on a Europe trip as well. I would love that.
Right. Like you gotta be a parent. You can't just be your son's bro.
You can't be their buddy. But there was that phase. Is it mostly just a Yash Raj and Dharma thing? It might be. There was that phase where like all the dads that they were portraying on screen, they were basically just trying to be their kid's best friend. And I was like, this is very questionable behavior.
I mean, you and I are not parents, and I do
No.
have some friends who refer to their children as their best friends, and I always think,
Mhm.
it's a thing, but I don't see how that's the same, but you know.
I mean, I'm normal. My best friend is my dog. So I don't believe in human besties. My best friend is a dog.
There's
Okay.
a whole saying about that, so that's fair.
Right. So before we wrap up this episode, tell us one amazing thing that you learned from your dad, because we did this for our mom episode as well.
Oh, a thing I learned from my dad. I was thinking about this a little bit earlier today, and then my brain wandered off. I didn't finish
Mm.
thinking. But the thing I started with, which is I'll go with that, is so both my parents were professors. So you might think I'm going to say the same thing about my dad as I did about my mom, but I won't. I'll say something different.
And I
My
know your
dad,
dad was a Roman professor.
that's right, Roman historian. My dad did things that when I was growing up, I would eye roll about, but as an adult, I love them. And I'm glad
Okay.
that I was given this model of how to be a person in the world. My dad would chit chat with anybody, at any setting, anytime about now, maybe it wasn't about just anything, but sure, as a teenager, I sure remember it seeming like, Dad, why are you talking about this with this person or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
we would pull up at a gas station and someone else in a car next to us had a sticker from some university. Not that my dad was connected to, but like he went there once for a conference or whatever. He would just like blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like my dad loved to chit chat. And
He was
that,
a yapper.
yes, who loves to chit chat?
Right.
Yes, who will chat with anyone in line at the grocery store or will, like I was at a training session on campus the other day in a building I'm not usually in. And I was in the restroom and I'm washing my hands and a lady comes out of another stall and she's washing her hands and she's wearing this gorgeous, um, I think it was actually an African wax print dress. And I just said,
Love.
I love your skirt. What a beautiful pattern. And she said, thank you. And I said, it's so great. And she said, thank you. And I'm like, stop talking. So then I stopped. But I like, why did I say it twice?
Right.
you know, yes, the women's restroom is a place of like safety and togetherness, and we often chat, but like, she seemed like she wasn't scowling or anything, but she seemed like
Yeah.
she was being efficient and had a place to go,
Yeah.
or like she was gonna go
Yeah.
back to lunch now or whatever. Like, girl, why you gotta talk to everybody all the time?
Right. That's so funny. That's actually really cute.
Yeah, so approach the world with the smile and assume that people are friendly. I
Of
think
good intent.
Yeah, good intent. I think that's a good way to get through life, even if it is often not.
Yeah.
How about you?
That's cute. So my parents are complete opposites. My mother is a sporty, athletic person who plays like five sports and comes from an army family and is all the things. And my dad was the complete opposite. So my dad was an accountant, but he was an unusual accountant in the sense that he loved movies and
Mhm.
books and music more than anything. And when he was little, my paternal grandfather would allow my dad and my uncle, who was older than my dad, he would allow them to go watch a movie every week. And they lived in South Mumbai. So every single week, my dad and my uncle would go watch a movie, like, after school or whatever.
Do you know
And
which cinemas they went to?
I mean, they lived in Girgaon, so it was I don't know which one it was. It couldn't have been like Sterling and stuff. Maybe New Excelsior. I don't know, but always townside because they would
Yeah.
walk to the movie theater. And one of the older Nagin movies, which was one of the black and white movies. My dad was very little when they saw that, and he was terrified of snakes. So every time a snake would come, he would
Oh,
hide his head in his brother's like sleeve, and
oh.
then my uncle would watch because they were kids, and then my uncle would be like, okay, you can look now, and then my dad would be like, okay. So because they watched a movie every single week without knowing what the movie was about, so if it
Mm.
was like a scary movie or a movie with like thrilling action adventure like bullets going off and stuff, my dad would hide and my uncle would tell him when it was okay. And when he grew up and started going to college and he got pocket money and stuff, he would blow all his pocket money on the first day at Rhythm House because he would buy LPs,
Mm.
and he knew all the songs by heart. And he did accounts because he was the founding member of the Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Rafi fan club, and the KL Sehgal fan club, which did not survive for very long because there weren't as many fans. And he could play the tabla and the harmonium and he could sing. So from him, I learned all those things. And
Mhm.
he did not have a single sporty or athletic bone in his body. So when I was little, my mom would be like, do you want me to teach you tennis so we can do doubles? And my dad was like, no, thank you. I'm going to watch this like old movie. And she'd be like, oh, and she'd be like, he couldn't swim. And my mom has won medals for swimming. So
Yeah.
she'd be like, do you want me to teach you how to swim because you're scared of swimming? And then my dad was like, no, thank you. I want to listen to this Begum Akhtar CD actually. And then she'd be like, oh, fine. So I very much take after my dad, not an athletic sporty bone in my body, not interested in learning any kind of sport, but very much here to talk about movies and music and books and things like that. He was also very emotional. So I learned very early on that it's okay for men to cry because he would listen to like a song by Pandit Bhimsen Joshi or whatever, and then he would like start bawling. And
That's
I would start crying, not because I understood the music, but because he would cry. So I would mirror him. And my mom would walk into the living room, watch us, and she'd be like, and then just like walk away. She'd be like, my husband and my child crying because they're listening to some freaking raga. So yeah, that's what I
My dad
learned.
took me to the movies a lot when I was little, just like walking down to the,
Yeah.
only a couple of movie theaters in my town, but we would walk down and see, um, sometimes it was cartoons on a Saturday
Yeah.
afternoon. Or it'd be like Zorro and some cartoons, like them doing like throwback. I'm not as old as that. Like those were rerunning when I was
Right.
little in the 70s and early 80s. And he also took me to see Monty Python Holy Grail
Oh, nice. Okay.
when I was maybe a little too young to see it, but I have such a fond memory of going to that was on showing at the movie theater on the campus where they
Hmm.
taught. And so we went to that and I have loved Monty Python and particularly that one ever since.
Mm. Good taste.
Hmm.
My dad introduced me to Nagin movies, so also good taste. Okay, I think that concludes this episode. You guys tell us who your favorite Bollywood fathers are. You can name either actors or you can tell us the characters. Tell us if you've seen Beth's movie choice. Tell us if you've seen my movie choice for this episode. And then also tell us, we would love to hear one thing that you really admire about your dad or that you learned from your dad, because some of the most amazing responses we got last time was when people were telling us what their favorite qualities in their mom or what they learned from her. So we would also like to learn from your dads as well.
And father figure is also very welcome because I know not everybody has
Yes.
had a good dad in their lives. So
Yeah. And if your dream also is that in a parallel universe you want, Shami Kapoor to put you in a car and sing happy birthday to you, then let me know and I will make space for you and on the Jeep, like right next to me, and we can talk about the podcast at the same time. All right. Well, thank you for watching and we will see you next week. Bye.